Paz should have thought about an Ornn pick there. Would have provided a lot of what you want to look for anyway. A bit more of that scaling option. You can still turn up the Herald Fight and throw down a Call of the Forge Guard.
Not when you give counter pick in top lane. I think it's too much at that
the
point.
Gnar had already been in. So in some ways you already seen it. I suppose Camille would. I think Camille was banned as well.
Was Gnar? I thought Gnar was in the.
You're right. Sorry, it was
because they picked it on 4.
Right? You're absolutely right. It was. I do apologize.
Now you could have picked the Victor on 4 and said, whatever. But maybe they were waiting to see if Jet. Because I mean, let's be honest, Jet has been a star even in this series. I do think that. Based off of current trajectory, I actually think Recap's the player of the series right now.
No, he's been very good.
I do think that Jet has been as good as Recap in a lot of ways. I think that both of these players have done insane amounts of work. I think that there's a discussion to be had there. But I think giving Jet the ability to look at the entire enemy team draft, a la, 2020 CGA, the team that couldn't draft, and what their drafting strategy was, leave Arya to counterpick the entire enemy composition of, on Red 5 pick. Do the same for Jet in this game. I don't think it's a bad idea. Give him the tools to really start popping off because he is the player, the caliber to do that.
Syndra Victor is a matchup that has been a staple of the mid lane over the years in pro play. Fallen away a little bit as Syndra has been hit with some of those ban hammers because, of course, the Dark Spheres were just a touch obnoxious a couple years ago, and they've made that a little harder to pull off with the same freedom you used to.
They undid some of the nerfs they did. I think it's towards the mana costs. But I mean, you compare Syndra now to like Season 3 Syndra, where her Q did like another 50% damage at level 1, and you ate that, and you felt very, very bad about it. Also, the W was 20% larger hitbox, and there was a lot of stuff which was really nasty about that champion.
It's still not as bad as Orianna release, where you could stand in the middle of the lane, poke the enemy under tower with the ball, and check both bushes from basically a third of the way up the lane. It was utterly ridiculous.
Release champions and how they scare us. Signed Zoe.
Yeah, like the thing is, people like often go, "Oh my god, Zoe was horrific at release." Oh
for,
my god,
for the time period, there's a difference between a new champion from season 5 onwards to like season 2.
Yeah, but I mean, I tell you now, Orianna release was stupid. Like, holy moly range. Anyway, it stands that champions on release sometimes a little overtuned, but this series is certainly not on release, and the AI has the heaviest advantage we've seen early on. I think all series.
I think the problem was it was actually something which we mentioned earlier in the series. I mean, sometimes you just have to talk about Orianna and Syndra and just ponder the orbs. Ponder the orbs. Just sit there and just ruminate on the spheres that be.
Is Kobank involved doing the soundtrack? Is that what we're going with this?
Yeah, so production, if you could get like that one meme of pondering the orb, but just have Oblivion orb, that would make me very happy. And now back to other things.
I just got an okay from production, so this might actually be happening. So to all those viewers at home, I apologize in advance. This is something that Amera and Chris Edgeworth, those are the two you need to blame, have set up by themselves. And the LJLOU takes
we take great pride.
No responsibility.
We take great pride in our ability to think of comedic entertainment on the. That too. Traitor actually spots out a Warden as red buff. I'm going to quickly disable it. I actually wonder if he was seeing that. But he's going to stay off of vision just a little longer. But both these junglers going from one quadrant, going for a full clear across the others. Not going to look for any early ganks this way, that way, or the other way. But either way, Sengoku would have seen a red start from Hachimetra, and of course that would have meant that Jet would have had full information if it was a red into potential gank into mid. And with the knowledge that he's not doing that, plays up more aggressively, gets to poke out Recap a little bit, and push in the wave. So doing fine in the matchup just with the early information.
Once right now, of course, as we saw as well, pushing towards that top side, and Paz has been pretty careful not to try and use his abilities too much to AoE the wave. Means that Paz is actually potentially held in the wave in a very good position for once to come in for a gank onto Ino, especially now the Mega Gnar is currently run out. I think with the Krogs being taken right now, they're going to be a little bit of an awkward timing.
So, speaking of that kind of freeze, I mean, Jack can actually leave for a slow push here. He's got 3 extra minions on his side, so it's going to force the teleport out of Recap. There is a chance that they're probably just going to both TP back at this point, get a tip, Dark Seal, whatever your laning items really are at this point, and get back in there.
Yeah, Control Ward picked up alongside a Doran's Ring, and slight CS discrepancy, of course, but I'm sure Jet will pick up a certain amount of that from the wave, but Recap right now, enjoying the early lane priority that Syndra can still sometimes gain for herself.
This is the thing, right? Actually, he didn't have the early lane priority. He was being pushed in. Jet was taking the heavier trades, managing to auto space that term fairly well, and coming back into this now. You see that once has come on and started to...
Great gravity field, not quite in range of that scatter the weak, still fantastic. Flash available, may need to burn, it does not, walks out, Recap Syndra mechanics still on point. Empty flash tap from attempted flag and drag at the bot side, and both junglers try to make things work and can't quite secure it.
And that is one of a great many reasons why Jet has been so highly praised in our region. Very easily just takes control of the early lane, says, okay, cool, I'm going to push it in, make sure that I have a slow push to bounce back to me. Once it's on the top side of the map, he's going to have an option, burns the flash. No, or rather just gets Recap out of lane. Means that now Recap is going to be behind a little bit in XP, a little bit in CS actually after that wave evens out. It's just simple things leading into quite visible leads for Sengoku's mid laner.
It's a slight push right now for Paz as well, who has decided now it's time to start shoving out, especially now he's got a few levels under his belt, feels a little bit safer against some of those potential options. And we've got ourselves another stable early game. I'm hoping we don't end up being quite as slow as last time. And with the amount of playmaking, it shouldn't be this time around.
And you know, you look at what Jet is doing, ends up getting the wave onto his side of the lane at the right point, and just allows Sengoku to plan around potentially abusing what has been one of the strongest players in this series, has been for Rascal Jester and Recap.
Quick aside there, that ward that Secret just put down in that pixel bush in the blue side jungle of Sengoku Gaming has been there at that time point 3 games in a row. NT comes over and sweeps it straight away this time. There will be no ward there. That was how NT got caught, if you remember, in the first game with Jet's Veigar coming over and holding him into a cage. We saw that crazy chase down into the jungle afterwards. So that ward has been a little bit of a focal point in the early game. Actually, nice to see those in-series adaptations.
I actually believe that was the other way around. Secret died to put that ward in. Because remember, they've stayed on these sides the entire time.
Yes, he did. That's what I'm saying. Yes. That's what I mean. Sorry. Sorry. That's exactly what I mean. And the NT went afterwards. That's what I meant.
Anyway, so just making sure that's on either way. It's still interesting that Bush has been so highly prioritized around. And it gives you, again, a little bit of an extra ability to play around the mid lane, which of course has been a big focal point for both these teams, and 2 players really performing well in the series.
Absolutely going to be the case at this point, as well as bot lane is currently what it was. Of course, remember NT did burn that flash from the attempted gank. A little more reads right home about, and eyes on the junglers to see whether they want to go for another gank. Once is back around the mid lane and looking for a repeat opportunity to Recap, but I think it's going to be pretty hard work to get onto him, especially because he didn't burn that flash in the attempted gank.
Again, it comes down to that discipline, a little bit of word that we used before. Recap not going to get stunned. If he had got stunned into that gravity field, things would have been a little bit more dicey, but Recap forced back again. No teleport, and although, okay, Paz
does need to try and get out of here, does have the dominance, hasn't popped it yet. Mega Knight's about to come through, gets lowered to the wall, but does get the dominance just about off, can maybe think about turning around. The Colombic Empire gets so much healing. And they just about survive. It's a flash from Ino, but he's about to run out of Mega, and Once is actually around. I wonder whether there's an angle here for Once to come in on this. He's certainly thinking about it. I don't know whether he'd been quite spotted as he just popped out of the bush, but he's going to recall instead.
Gosh, nerves a steal from Recap on one side, Paz on the other, different lanes, but similar eventualities, not burning the summoners when potentially would have had to. And again, as much as that last game, you can kind of joke at it and say, ahaha, they're not doing anything with anything that where are their engages? How do they get these big kills? The players, when they have their hands on the keyboards, have absolutely performed well. It's just been the tools they've been given. No Devour yet.
Onto Honey. He's down to 200 HP. Trying to hit a flash for the auto. Gets first blood onto Sol. This Jinx is just too clean for him.
And no level 6 from the Tom Kench. Can't Devour out. Didn't have a cleanse or anything either to get rid of the Ignite. And the heal goes down with the reduced value. And Sol gets a kill on the board. It's the Jinx, the hyper carry of our region, alongside Honey and so many others, but has the Jinx and has performed so well on it. It's a good starting point for Rascal Jester in this game.
I know Recap's been putting his name up for an MVP of this series if Rascal Jester, of course, win this game out, or at least one more in this series. I think Sol, as well, definitely got to be right up there as another one of those candidates. Had a phenomenal time on the Jinx, being a really terrifying backline threat, and getting the edge over Honey's Aphelios. Rascal Jester do secure that Herald.
Twice on the queue.
Partly, of course, because Paz didn't have the dominance and the bot lane plays come out the way it does, and you draft for a Herald fight. We kind of talked about it. You picked the Renekton partly for that, partly for its ability to be a pressure point, a bit of a hinge pick. Some of the coaches like to use old phrase.
So I call it, so the way I kind of say it kind of I feel like it describes it a little more adequately as it's a baton pass, right? Where you have agency in the early game, but you have to pass that on. And if you don't have anyone to pass it to, you're in trouble. But if you do manage to pass it on to someone like the Aphelios or the Victor in good time, that can very much work. But it feels like right now, Sengoku this is relay race, starting to fall a little bit behind. Yes, they do have a 10 CS lead in that top lane, but that's not really what you pick the Renekton for. Question is now, what are you going to do when you're lacking that target access later into the game?
Yeah, and like another part of this discussion is Once is actually around, so we may have to to wait on it for just a second, but he does pull away. Another part of this, of course, is a bit of a discussion I know a few of the coaches have been having about why is Renekton still a bit of priority when people have kind of particularly been quite critical of him. So one of the things I've been hearing, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on as well, is this ability to draw pressure, not only be a baton pass, but basically also be a good 1vx champion and draw pressure so your other side of the map can be freer. Your Aphelios in this can be a bit freer to play up, play aggressive.
So I agree with that. I agree with that. But it needs to be into the right matchup. I don't think Gnar is that matchup. I think that Gnar nullifies this more than fine. We saw that Ino was actually finding advantages of his own. And this hasn't had to be Hatchemetra going to bail out his top side. It actually hasn't had to be up there at all. So you have, and then when it comes away from that point, it's like, okay, you've drawn resources up here, right? Well, okay, you haven't done that, and then you can start falling off a little bit more. Hatchemetra can be on the bot side, and there is no Renekton and no Gnar to impact this kind of play.
And so the bot lane takes all that pressure and takes 4 plates down to about 10% HP, and that pressure we're supposed to get in top lane, you just don't have.
Exactly, and then you look at this and you say, actually, oh, but if you got the Renekton and you pick that, maybe there's a way for you to play through topside. Well, actually, that's not going to be the case. You can see that Ino is pushing under turret, even up that CS, and there is a wave under tower, so it's going to be slightly to Paz as well. But enough about the Crocodile in the top lane, as much as he is a controversial champion with many people sharing their opinions on it. The reality is it's an early game lead to Rascal Jester. That is not what Sengoku have drafted for. They're once again going to have to find some ways to find some magic, but it hasn't been enough to win them games just yet.
Honestly, this is Rascal Jesters with a pretty comfortable early game. They've got gold on to Sol, who's got a Galeforce, who's got a Cull, who's got First Blood, who's got 4 plates, who's he's inches away with 3 minutes spare of claiming that 5th plate and first tower, as well as Enti. A spot of bother here as well, but we'll manage to disengage us once it is around, and maybe we'll see ourselves a bit of a scuffle around this dragon.
Yeah, well, we do have every member of the bot side.
He's in
back. Oh, it's a good flag. That's a very good flag.
Going to try and get in on him, but it's not going to be quite enough. I wonder whether once should have just held the patience. Didn't know Sol was coming though, so I wonder whether that's just a little bit of what we can see, what he can't.
That's the time to go, because if Enti hits the W, you get the chain 2 into the other. I think that would have been more than fine to work out with. Either way, does force Rascal Jester out of the river. Sengoku able to take this dragon. That's 1 stacked up, and while all this is happening, again, isolated top lane matchup is kind of going even. This is, again, not what you have picked it for. So Sengoku is starting to lose some value out of what they have drafted towards. And yet to find anything with the Lee Sin either, though, of course, the same can be said of the Jarvan. Jarvan's time in team fights later on probably going to be a little bit easier. Cataclysm, point and click, whereas the Cataclysm, no, not the Cataclysm, the Dragon's Rage going to be a little harder to get maximum value out of.
Exactly, and that's the kind of deal, right? It's the ease of execution. Jarvan is pretty simple. You press R, you flash R, you EQ up. Like, it's not hard. Like, you basically go in line and you jump on the people you need to jump on. Like, your target access is not a Jarvan problem. You can do similar things to Lee Sin, but the barrier to execution is just so much higher. Recap chunked out pretty heavily in the mid lane as well, but Sol claims first turret, and that is the goal going over, again, without a huge amount of action in this early game. And yes, it's hard to execute, but I'll give one some credit. I believe he is a player capable of making strong teamfight plays on the Lee Sin, but it's coming to the point where that is what he's going to be required to do.
Required to do that. And again, we're kind of talking about what is Sengoku required to do to win this game. Actually, what the conversation should be for this series is, what do these teams need to show us to put fear into DFM's hearts? And Des said it. We have to say it to you.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid if I'm a DFM member right now. I'm sat here thinking, look, they haven't drafted particularly clinically to win out in large regards. It's been very even drafts. It's not, and they haven't been playing their drafts well enough at certain points of the game, in the early game, around some parts of the map, to really get the value that they really want out of this. So Sengoku, at this point, they're starting to make some kind of moves. They've switched things up to that top side, trying to play around the Aphelios' point of power, post level 6, but not quite at the level 9 where the Jinx starts to take over again. But again, it's not led to anything right now. Rascal Jester starting to nullify, and this again rolls into a conversation about Sengoku's early game has not been that potent.
Reminder that before this game had even begun, the series that DFM had versus Sengoku would have been over. That's how short it's been as once. Maybe jumped on there briefly, but does manage to ward hop out to safety. And I think, yes, Rascal Jesters are too open in the series, but it's not been particularly clinical. And that means that DFM look at this and they go, I think we can just do the exact same to Rascal Jesters, however the regular season games may have gone.
And yeah, of course, got to bring that up again. Sengoku had the winning matchup versus Rascal Jester in the regular season. Rascal Jester had the winning matchup versus DFM. Yes, there was a substitute game in there when Utapon returned to top lane for the first time since 2017. Oh yeah, wasn't that a time? But even though, with that all being said and done, Sengoku, the ones which are sat 0-2 down, at 0-5 in their playoffs run so far, didn't manage to take a single win of TFM once.
That's so mean.
He's had some awkward moments to spikes in this series. as a little bit of a less impactful one at this point.
Think about
One's
this.
going for the kick.
Oh, can't quite make it happen. Gets jocked up himself and goes down, but there's a teleport's coming through. That's a big gravity field double flash now out. Big kill back. Now the Hatchemetra throws down the Cataclysm. I think he's still dead to rights. And yes, they burn everything to kill once, but they still lose 2.
Okay, and you know that bat's on. You want to hand it over to one of your carries. 2 kills to your Victor. Very much helps with that. Now, it is an Everfrost Victor. It's not going to be the big poke everything at you, but it is going to be stopping the Jarvan, the Gnar, the Rakan from getting pure value out of their dive as well. We know what Sengoku's comp does well. If you jump into them, they do a lot of damage in the low range, stall you out kind of fights. What we're going to go see here is one's getting a little bit outplayed. Jumps in, and yes, it does start. I mean, this reminds me of, for those of you who remember High back in the earlier seasons of NA. Back when he had really bad stats in terms of his KDA, he was dying all the time, but he just died to start fights because he knew it was the right time to start it. Feels like a similar situation from once. Starts the fight at the right time, gets something from it.
And as you called out, that is the Everfrost on Victor, as I think that was another Herald play that's gone wrong.
That's why the observers were holding over the Jinx ultimate. He gets it all from mid lane, steals the Herald. So Sengoku, they were looking for, again, these early game power plays, and that one's got to sting. That one's got to really sting.
Something that with blue buff earlier in the series as well. That is like, how is it that 3 games in a row we've seen such ridiculous Herald fights with like double missed eyes because of ridiculous steals? You can see the goal discrepancies here right now. Jet got a lot of gold over his opponent because of those 2 kills. Same for Sol, who got all those plays. First blood, massive lead right there.
For the first time in the series, because actually for a lot of this, Honey has had still a lot of resources put into them. You saw that Sengoku were trying to rotate around the map, get some free lane access for Honey to start shredding down towers in a way that only really Felios can do with the correct weapon combinations, but it hasn't worked out. So now you're heading into these mid-game team fights, relying more on Jet than you would do on Honey. Honey would love to be in a bit more of a point of power. It's just not happened so far.
Not yet, it hasn't. Now Sengoku Gaming, despite having lost the Herald, will continue to put some pressure down and start to rotate and leverage it in the mid lane. Quick wave clear in trade between a Syndra and a Jinx. Instead, we've got ourselves a Drake live, and 1 apiece means we're still a long way from Sol. We've been a long way from Sol in both games, starting up a little fight now.
So, Secret on the flank. We talked about how dangerous the Rakan can be on the flank.
Honey's got flash, does have cleanse, Secret's been stalled out. Paz makes it work on the other side. The Cull, the Meek, and the Ruthless Predator do their work. The flanking Rakan is dead to rights there. Rocket this time won't be enough to steal, and Sengoku Gaming secure themselves a kill and a dragon. Can maybe looking for a bit more. Gale falls forward for the binding eclipse, trying to burn him out. That is the Nard. Hatchemetra's starting to try and turn it around, can't make it happen. He's now having to flag and drag out of danger, and Sengoku Gaming make the dragon fight work for them.
And if we were talking about a little bit of a timer in some regards to their comp, Sengoku find an important fight at the right timing. Something which they've struggled to do for actually the entire series. It is just that 1 kill. Get a dragon on top of it, though. If they manage to get the mid turret, that's actually a pretty big play for them.
A hefty swing in goal. This will bring the goal back probably just about in their favor even. We'll see how it evens up. Yeah, about 100 in their favor. Back to even.
And more so than the goal, it's about the control now. Because you can start walking in, use your Lee Sin to actually put down some vision. But Jet
takes a lot of damage. Can't quite secure that kill. The Zap just about wide. I don't think mana for a rocket that's not available either. So nothing to follow up on that one. Jet just forced out of the lane.
Hoping for some lucky crits, I think. On that one, you do have a little bit of crit in inventory, particularly with the extra crit cloak on top of the Zeal. So yeah, actually, maybe we're just trying to play the RNG numbers. But now, Sengoku find themselves in a lead. Is it enough? They have 3 kills on the Victor. We've been seeing how much Jet has been doing so far, and even Jet agency in a game seems to be a key to success for Sengoku, and it's not actually been all the Honey show. Not so far. It has really been Jet who has been the one in control of a lot of Sengoku's destiny, and he's had to fight against the weight of Rascal Jester as an arrayed team, kind of eventually just kind of out team fighting. But I mean, we asked to see if we could get a game 4. This is looking like decent signs actually from Sengoku.
3-0 on your star mid laner, and he's going to try and do his absolute best. Quick question to you as well. Obviously, we called out the Everfrost earlier. I think this is the first professional Everfrost Victor game I've seen. How do you feel about it in this comp? I mean, I see the divers, I see the kind of possibility. Is it something you kind of vibe with, so to speak?
I mean, we've seen a bit of Everfrost Victor before. We have, particularly in the LCK. It's been widely criticized because it is not efficient damage. It's more about the utility. It does remove what, not remove, but it nullifies.
It's a response.
No. So that's not the angle for it. It's more like one of the big play patterns for Victor is being able to poke people out. And this doesn't help with that at all. It gives you some AP, but whatever, right? You're not got the Ludens proc, you don't have the Leandries. It's not exactly the same level of ability to play from range. But if they're already in your face, giving yourself an extra self-peel tool actually helps quite a lot. And we saw how important disengage was last game, so the ability for Jet to kind of peel away the Jarvan a bit more, maybe stop Ino from walking up and trying to get that Mega Knot, it can help quite a lot.
Yeah, to clarify, that would be my...
Yes.
Chris, Nightmare.
I am pondering my orb.
I was about to justify my comment saying, look, yes, this Everfrost is a response into all the dives that be coming at Victor. Instead, I now have to observe an Oblivion Orb that's not even in this game! No one is building and isn't likely to right now!
That made my day. Thank you, Chris. We passed the Hysteria horizon a little bit last game.
I'm so upset.
I'm glad we've continued to this one a little more.
Jet's gonna split push away without an Oblivion Orb. He's gonna ponder towers and structures.
Yeah, well, that one's been demolished in forthwith and starting to hit our item breakpoints outside of various spherical shaped objects.
Your head, which I'll be beating in at the end of the result of this because of how ridiculous you're being. Older brother privileges, sibling on sibling violence. All right. 3-0, Baron is alive. I don't think either team necessarily want to run over and do that right now. But either way, we're left with a game that is kind of just swung slightly gold-wise in the favor of Sengoku. It's another Cloud, so we've seen a few of those this series. Of course, Infernal was the last one, but first game was back to the Cloud. And Jet feeling pretty happy, going towards likely, I imagine... actually, I was going to say Deathcap and realised that Shadow Flame also builds out and it leads to the large rod, and I wonder whether that might be his build.
Yeah, I was about to say, you are Soul AP. The extra HP goes a long way too.
Sure.
That one can help. I think either one's fine. I think this will depend on how much gold you have when you're going back at this point.
True enough.
Because you already have the large amount of pen from the Void Staff, but you don't have Ludens, you don't have Salt Pens, you kind of double up on too much flat pen. Because there is a point where you build all three, and the pen aspect of it starts getting less value. Although, of course, Shadow Flame with such a large amount of AP is still a good item regardless of that situation. Just means it's not the most efficient item in some regards in compared to other builds. However, Bloodthirster coming through from Honey, again, very important when you're playing around these Scatter of the Weeks. Not able to chunk out that Aphelios quite as effectively. Now we're looking again towards that next dragon. That kind of poke will be important. Let's see what damage actually sticks between these teams.
Do what they can. Mid lane priority. Currently, the angle is Hachimeja forced out there. Like and drag down about half HP, but does have a pop to try and heal himself back up. And that mid lane turret being down means that Sengoku Gaming win that shove pretty handily as the dragon spawns.
But look at Recap trying to do this work. The difference between Game 3 and Game 2 is the amount of gold on your Syndra at this point. Q's on the dragon.
That's a lot of damage. The dragon goes down. Paz was stepping forward with the Dominus running, but can't get in this time. Secret wasn't looking for the flank, and the dragons are now evened up, and Sengoku Gaming have to back away. We're back to a game that is still anyone's at this point in the game, as once maybe looking for something more at the back end of this. Ooh, bit of a chunk stops Paz's recall.
It stops them being able to teleport back in.
That's a bit of damage back and forth as Enti, Abyssal Dive trying to go to Hachimeja. Recap and Rascal Jesters trying to extricate themselves from their own bot lane as Honey rotates back over to this mid lane. Onslaught running. Might well be able to get this tier 2 as a trade for the dragon.
So, I mean, that Jinx ult actually stops a potential larger fight coming through if what Paz had teleported into the fray. But again, you can see how difficult it is for the Renekton to try and fight straight down the gullet of Rascal Jester. You just don't have the target access, and it really was the Victor buying space, which meant that Rascal Jester couldn't kind of return them the favor in due kind and trying to take a front to back. But this game is, again, very balanced between these two teams. We knew this was going to be an even matchup. We knew that the teams were going to be close. And there are such things as close 3-0s. This is one of them. One of the closest we've seen quite a long time. Maybe one of the closest we've ever seen in the LJL. But now we see back to the mid lane. Jet trying to pump out some damage where he can. And again, we kind of spoke about it a little bit just coming up to the start of that dragon fight. This is not a super powered Syndra. The poke is not landing quite as well. You've got Severum, you've got the Bloodthirster on one side, you've got Merc Treads and shields coming through from Jet. So hard to actually make this damage stick.
Empowered Ruthless Predator does a lot of work, chunks out this nod about half HP. He's now got Mega. You're going to get too much more out of this. We'll just force a bit of a chunked out Nart away from his own jungle, and we'll secure a little bit more opportunity for vision control for Sengoku Gaming as they invade into this side of the jungle.
And not having that ability to really chunk out from range is allowing Sengoku to walk up with a Lee Sin, who's got a Merc Treads, and that's kind of all they need at this point.
There it is, the orb.
And we shall ponder it once more. And then having Jet with the Merc Treads, having the Q shields, it's actually really hard to kind of dissuade them from walking up because they're not going to take significant damage. And that's Recap not having that same level of damage is kind of difficult.
And I understand that Zhonya's into a lot of people trying to throw you into a gravity field, etc., etc. It makes some sense in terms of the defensive utility of it, but considering your position as a lot of the burst, I wonder whether a Void Staff or a Shadow Flame might have been a wiser call.
I mean, when you're looking at Bloodthirster and the Severum, and it makes sense, right? Particularly we've got 2 Gore Drinker carries. That's the big top laner. So if you're going to low distance fights, you need healing reduction somewhere. I think that right now, Recap just dishing that out instead of having someone like Jinx having to shell out for it. I think that makes sense.
To clarify, I was more thinking about the Zhonya second. The Oblivion Orb, I completely understand you. But your point definitely stands, and I appreciate the analysis on it, because it makes a lot of sense considering the healing available. Baron down to 3,000 HP, though, and this is a Rascal Jester special.
Disengage.
Has been forced away, and this means this Baron's likely just going to go down, and does so. Well played, Jesters.
Again, it is just Rascal Jesters understanding their Baron damage, understanding the timing, and out of nowhere, Sengoku were an even game, slightly ahead even, lose themselves a huge objective and have to just wince in a little bit of pain and let that one go.
Indeed, it's gone. Well played, Jesters. 3 items on your Jinx. You turn up and you shred the Baron.
They are a good team. They understand the fundamentals. They understand the aspects of the games that they want to play around. And Rascal Jester sneak that one away. And as much as it is slightly awkward itemization from Recap, having a little bit more golden pocket will maybe help you get over that bump now.
Of course, what it does mean is he will provide a lot of utility. He's hard to pick. He can do all that. And when you've got 3 items on your superstar AD carry, reminder, 80% kill participation for Sol. This team plays through their bot laner when they win. It's going to be a significant advantage now with the Baron as well to try and start shoving in and recouping some of the structures you've yet to get a hold of yourself.
Okay. We're back into our grouped up skirmishes. Grouped up back and forth, landing that poke, see what can really stick at this point. But now, when you've got this Renekton who is at 2 items, it's not the same 2 items as you had before. You need to find some way to deal with your side lane threat. And actually, what Sengoku's answer to that is saying, let's just leave Victor on the side lane. They're strong right now. They can deal with the Gnar. Bring Renekton into the mid lane, but that means that you're going to lose something somewhere because that Victor is so much your wave clear.
30 seconds until what would be a Cloud Soul point for either of these teams. Of course, Jet does have the teleport, so could join, but Rascal Jesters, with the aid of the Baron, will be able to secure that mid lane outer turret that stood for a long while in this game, and will continue to shove in and maybe attempt a siege onto this tier 2.
I think they have the right vision to do so. There is a teleport on Jet if he wants to start joining into these fights, but he's not really the flanking sort either way. Actually, they have just changed their lane assignments back because Sengoku realized they don't have that same kind of level of
Will force the Gale Force. NT tries to get the Abyss Dive, won't make it work. Well, it's so much damage in trade. Goes back with the flash. Still dies to Sol, who throws a final rocket. Jinx sends her regards.
That's the final shot in fight, and Sol gets another kill. Sengoku looking for some way to break that siege you were talking about. So Rascal Jester, can they risk that siege? Turns out they absolutely can, and this is going to be a big Baron power play now, getting over that 3,000 mark, taking another turret, and Rascal Jester's off of 1 snuck Baron after the Baron steal in game 1, after playing out such a stalled game in game 2, have found another way to make a close game into a clutch, maybe victory.
Paz gets a stun onto Ino, but he's pretty damn tanky, and even a few turret shots aren't going to mean a lot to him at this point, and just going to keep him away from the turret for now, but that's about it. Cloud Dragon to spawn Hatchemetchers around him. Once is actually thinking more about potentially getting a hold of that Gnar, and that will give the green light to Rascal Jesters to get onto this dragon, knowing that there will be no attempt at a contest.
So, last of that Baron buff just being utilized to just shove some waves into these turrets. Going to die off as we're speaking about it, but it doesn't matter. Rascal Jester is still going to take some chunks, and they're very happy to group up at this point. They have the items on the core carry. Speaking of items, you were just pointing something out on screen there, weren't you?
Yeah, Jet recalls and finishes up a very large death cap in. That bot lane tier 2 did fall, but it means that this super fed early Victor is now at, or fed early on Victor, has hit that 3-item breakpoint, is at a very, very strong point. Not quite level 16, but the moment the Chaos Storm hits that point, I think Sengoku Gaming, despite being behind, can still find ways to play out these fights.
And again, it has come down to what we saw in game 1, mostly. Game 2 to a certain extent as well, but game 1 in particular, we saw that while you might be behind in gold, in some senses, you still have carries alive. They're stalling carries. They can clear waves. They have range. They have absurd damage if you let them free fire. So while they might still be easy to take down because you have enough gold on your carries to damage them, you got to reach them first. If they're alive, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. And Sol on his way to a 4th item. And the moment I speak about it, there is the Bloodthirster. Still not a 3rd complete from Honey. No Infinity Edge in there. I said that the last game as well. And I feel that Sengoku Gaming are going to want to hold on just a little bit. It's still about a minute and a half until that Baron. You've got to hope that Honey will have that item ability by then, but they're not going to wait. They're going to look for a dive. Get on to the kick, but it's on to Secret, who's got quickness and a battle dance, but a flash from Jet secures it anyway.
And they're just looking for something. Okay, now you don't have the Rakan. Can you actually defend your own turrets at this point? Because you've used a lot of, Sengoku have used a lot of their own abilities to go forward aggressively, but Rakan was a real thorn in their side off the table, but Sengoku not able to get more than that.
All the while, though, Aino's going to shove in this bot side, and there's no one really there to respond to him quite yet. I suspect Paz will recall. Is flash down on Jet. That's a fairly big tool. That Victor hasn't got a stopwatch actually back for a Fiendish Codex, not even for that ability. And yes, that was a 4th kill for him. Great news, but you don't get to break the base. You don't get to shove too much more. There's no Baron to retreat to.
Yeah, it does force Rascal Jester to stay on their side of the map. You look, actually, Sengoku have recouped a lot of the vision on their top side, and you know that the Baron is spawning in a minute, but at the cost of Victor's flash, which you're now not going to have for maybe a series-ending Baron fight, that's rough. That is still rough. You get something from it, but you have to play a team fight so more respectfully when the Victor doesn't have that extra degree of safety.
And considering you're playing into Rakan, Jarvan, Syndrastun, that's a lot of things you want to be able to flash.
NC, this one's on you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Needs to be very, very aware of what can happen. That Devour will be critical, of course. Honey has both Summoners plus Gale Force available, so he'll be a little easy to keep alive. Of course, has now got that Infinity Edge critically coming up with this Baron, which is spawning in about 10 seconds. I know his split pushing, has got teleport, but a long way off Mega Gnar.
He's a long way off Naganar, but at least he's not a Renekton. So Paz has a flash, he has a dream, but this is kind of the problem now. Sengoku, you don't have the Mega Gnar yourself for these big dynamic engages you can look towards. Sengoku, they're on to the Baron. They have secured what won this series. Trying to remember it, but it's going to come down to a fist fight, a good old fist fight. Let's bring in the 5v5.
Down to half HP. The last game was decided by a criminally played out Baron where Sengoku had corralled into the top lane. And despite Elder Buff wearing out just before they could fight, it all went wrong from there. They're going to pull off the Baron. They did get the teleport out of Aino and then consider that the victory they needed.
But Rascal Jester get themselves the inside track to mid. If they take themselves a mid inhibitor turret, that actually changed the way that they can play around the map. Low health on the bot lane too. Rascal Jester, again, playing the game of inches, death by 1,000 cuts or many bullets of the same kind of caliber. They're starting their siege up again.
Jet down about half HP, and that tower goes down.
Excited.
They're going to try and turn it around to big Gravitum ultimate, but they only bind Aino in place really right now. The turnaround with the Gale Force not quite enough to kill off the Mega Gnar. In goes Paz, secures it. Damn scaling, damn anything else they get. 3 out of nowhere. It's solid recap alone that survived the turnaround pounce from Sengoku Gaming.
Okay, but can they actually chase down these 2 remaining carries? You can see that Sol still has damage, still has lethal tempo stacked up. That's an important one to keep track of, but Sengoku, they punish Rascal Jester. Normally this has been the other way around. Rascal Jester, they go beyond their vision.
If they kill the jungler, it might have been different. It might have been something, but still, Sengoku Gaming will have the ability to turn over to this Baron. Once, I don't think has a second smite charge, so can't heal.
No, he does have his W. Safeguard gives him all of that ability to play around the extra vamp, but someone else needs to tank, and Sol's free firing!
Does so much damage. Sol on the back end of it as well. The health bars are just too low. 2 members alone for Sengoku away from Baron. Recap and Sol hold the line.
They hold the line, and I was going to make a love isn't always on time, but I mean, Sengoku, they were just about in time for this mid lane play. Once is on vision here, but either way, Rascal Jester, they find a way to kind of disengage Sengoku from the play, from this play, and they're playing around, they're getting excited from Jinx after killing that structure. That's all well and good, but we're back to live, we keep going.
Baron was started, his teleports coming in. I think from Paz at this point, Jet is already around. What will they manage to get aside from that? Doesn't seem like too much right now. Rascal Jester's trying to find a way out of the river, looking to see if there's anything on the side, contesting for vision in that bush. The death rays starting to sting quite a lot as Honey will retreat over towards this dragon. He's less important right now.
The thing is, Rascal Jester, they see that Felos is not there. Now, they could maybe infer that he's just down on the bot side, just try and pull him up, but he's already taken it. It's already gone. Question is, how quickly is this going down? Sengoku leaving themselves at a steal opportunity.
Jet's not there either. He was shoving out mid lane. They were trying to get control, but was it a little too little? Was it a little too late? In goes Wanty into the back of the pit. It's still weird spike. Hatchmecha secures Paz. Trying to go into recap. Who goes golden? That's Zonya's second. Proving clutch
Here
right
comes
now.
Honey.
But here comes the rest of them. They're in a really bad position. Look at the Crocodile. He's trying to heal up. Will not manage it. Recap secures a kill on the retreat. It's a 1-for-1, but the Baron does go the way of Rascal Jester.
Okay, the heist isn't worked out from Sengoku. They take away 1 kill. It's Secret who's down. We talked about how important it is that the Rakan is ready and available to punish these carries from Sengoku. So immediate gain has gone to Rascal Jester and that Baron. However, without the threat of the Rakan, they're going to take some structures. Gold, still even enough for Sengoku's liking.
That was very close to Rascal Jester's losing everything once got into the pit. Paz was on a flank and it was a game of inches.
He kicks out Hatchemecha. He has the smite available, but he's in Zonya's. He can't smite while he's in Zonya's. Gets the jungler out the pit. Gets it down into that golden amount of HP, but he is golden in all the wrong ways. And Paz on the Recton struggling again to get that value at this point, but we are left with yet another crazy back and forth banger game in this series. It may well be a 3-0. It does not feel like it.
My days. Credit to Recap and Soul for pouncing on Renekton to force to blow their way out of the pincer that Sengoku were trying to get down, because if Recap and Soul had died there, it would have been an utter disaster, but they burned the summoners, they burned the ability actives to kill off the Crocodile and force their way out of the encirclement. Paz trying to hold on best he can in this top side. We've got ourselves a very even game state. 3 dragons apiece. The gold, 2,000-ish gold apart. Yes, the Baron's in Rascal Jester's favor. This is their second Baron. I've seen that a lot this game.
But what does that gold mean? Because he's starting to cap out on items. Sol hit max at this point. On the other side, Jet still has some gold to spend, but has double stopwatch for one eventual fight. He has flash, he has double stopwatch, and he has NT's Tom Kench. There's a double stopwatch on the other side, so there's going to be, you saw how important those Stacies were in the last fight with that Baron, with everything. Now we have to see what will happen. Are Sengoku going to play around these tools, or are they going to wait out the siege and try and get a better opportunity on a different day?
Time waits for no man, but it might wait for a Dark Sovereign. It might wait for the glorious evolution. They're going to have to try and make the most of it. The base is broken in the bot side. Inhibitors under siege. Infernum deletes them all! So much damage out of Honey. Fire and Brimstone comes through and stops the shove. Hatchemecha knocked up, knocked down, kicked in the face. Yes, they break the base, but much like the previous Baron Bush, it's pulled apart by a dive in response from Sengoku Gaming. There are stopwatches which are just not going to be burned. It's not worth it. Jets gets that one. Paz will stop Ino shoving in the top side. He's burned the dominance. Maybe he gets run down here trying to stun up, and he might lose this one actually. And trade does go down. The 1v1 on the top side is won by the Gnar. What will happen in trade? Look at Honey. He's shoving in the mid lane. There's waves in the bot side. Sengoku Gaming can try to break this one open as wide as they can.
And we have waited for Honey to start firing on all cylinders. All guns at the ready. The Infernum might bring Sengoku a lifeline, might bring them a game in this series, but Ino's 1v1 similarly important in a different regard. This means that Sengoku cannot capitalize on the first clean fight that they've had in such a long time. That's been the story of the series. Both teams fighting for clean wins, and they've just been so hard to win, and it comes down to this one ultimate, this one 200 years of fire, brimstone, and fury. You said that a number of years ago on some of our very first broadcasts, and Honey, you know, he only goes and does it again.
Utterly unreal. Hits it like a absolute truck. The Death Star laser comes down, crushes them all, and then the chase down is exactly that. Hatchemecha kicked out of his flag and drag as well. Credit to Once with the fancy mechanics.
Hey Sam, you ready for another dragon fight?
Oh,
6 dragons gone. We are not conservationists in this one instance of Summoner's Rift. All the dragons going down. We have ourselves a 7th on the table. It's not the Elder this time. Can't be thrown at that one, but Sengoku, they get themselves number of kills. They get themselves turrets. They get themselves positioning on the map, and they force Rascal Jester. They force Rascal Jester away from their side of the map. It means that some of their vision is gone. Some has survived. Sengoku pushing up, having that forward percent to tick up a little bit more, and they've had a rare opportunity to do that this game. There
are no inhibitor towers for Sengoku Gaming, but an inhibitor fallen for Rascal Jesters. We've got all of those stopwatches, all of them still available.
There is also one on Paz. He has himself 3 items. Jet is
chunked.
tagged.
Once shields him up. Safeguard saves Jet from even more damage. He'll be able to retreat, look for a teleport.
Actually, I spied there on the screen. Jet has himself a pot for this fight as well as Sorcerer's Elixir. He's going to back. He's going to have some ample opportunity to TP in where he wants. And actually, you know what? TP from Victor on the flank might actually not be the worst thing with a double stopwatch there if you can use that flash, but the Dragon's
going
started.
down. Wants these to get in. It's
Awesome
gets
engage!
in. It's not the best though. Decent amount of Chakrams coming out from Honey, but the Cataclysm zones out Sengoku Gaming. They're down the support, and we're going to follow up too much. They're still going to try and fight for this Dragon. Strike! Still going to be the Dragon Stone on the wave. The Chaos double Recap, who double stopwatches to try and time it out.
They're all golden!
Everybody goes golden, but the statuary breaks down. Honey comes in, a triple kill. Honey, I shrunk the health bars. It's never been so true.
And this will be the end of this game. It takes such a long time. It's another late game occurrence, but Rascal Jester, they go towards that dragon. They disengage from the first kill, but they can't do it twice. And Recap can't go golden nearly enough. Sengoku bring us to a game 4.
It's not gold quite yet. We'll be going for bronze at this point. Not quite there yet, but Sengoku Gaming will not go quietly into the night. They will not be 3-0'd. It's another 40+ minute game, and this time they come out on top.
Whatever you're paying him, Sengoku,